Hello, friends. I have to stop this lovely music I have going here. Accent. There we go. Yay. I mean, we could listen to that all night. I'm not sure I want to, but we definitely could. We definitely could. So, hello, good evening. I think it's evening where almost everyone is. It may be late afternoon in a couple of places, but welcome to October. It's October. Hi, friends. I'm so glad to be here with you tonight. It's going to be a fun night. I'm excited about freeze drying, which is what we're talking about this evening with the amazing Esther. But as some of you know, not all of you know, I come on a few minutes early and I give away a special $5 off coupon to one of the VIP members who attended our gathering last month. So I'm getting ready to do that. I will warn all of you all that there's a fly that's driving me insane. It won't leave me alone. So if I look like a twitchy weirdo tonight, it's because I've been trying to kill it for like an hour and I can't. So I'm going to pull up my happy wheel and let's give some $5 off away. Bum, 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 share screen. It's also storming here. So if you hear thunder, it would be here. All right, let's share. These were our VIP members who attended last month. So let's see who I can give $5 to and not forget to write it down. Whoopsie daisy. Looks like Miss Casey. All right, I will send her a $5 little coupon to our shop. So if you are not a VIP member of National Ladies Homestead Gathering, that is no worries. Obviously, we would love for you to be a very invested partner with us. $35 for the year, but you never have to do that to join us here on our virtual platform. So you do get fun discounts to lots of places, but that doesn't mean anything because I'm happy to see you whether you are a VIP member or not. Okay, let's get this started. I feel like I'm getting better at my editing skills for YouTube because all of these happy things eventually end up on our YouTube. The one from last month, I made YouTube very mad. It said I had excessive copyright in it, and I haven't been able to get it to upload. So if you are looking for last month's gathering on, oh my gosh, fodder, Robin did such a great job, but if you're looking for that and it's not there, it's me. I made YouTube very mad last week when I tried to upload it. So my bad. So I like that everyone in the chat is dropping where they're all from. If you have the ability to do that, please drop in there. It's fun to see where everyone's from. We've got Georgia, Kansas, Ohio, Idaho, Tennessee. They're up. Esther's from Iowa. She's a little north of me. Oh, we got Texas. Felicity's from Tulsa. Oh, Tulsa. Yeah, so Felicity and I are kind of in the same storm because I'm like 35 minutes east of Tulsa. So yeah, we are finally got some rain because they told us it was coming yesterday and then it like kind of rained, but it didn't really rain. Oh my gosh, this fly is gonna drive me nuts. Absolutely nuts. But yay. Now, oh, Maine. Super cool. Okay, so tonight we are going to be, oh, I was going on my editing skills. I have to like freeze like this for at least long enough for me to know when I'm going to start talking, but I haven't gotten very good at that because one, tonight I gotta fly, and two, my brain just doesn't work that way. It just keeps blabbing and blabbing and blabbing. So yay for Julie. That's just how it works. So I will get this started post blab. Tonight we are talking to Esther about freeze drying. I'm super excited for it. It's why you all are here. Thank you guys so much for attending these virtual gatherings. Without you coming, I don't have a job on the executives board. So thank you for giving me my job. I really enjoy doing these. It's a ton of fun. It's a great way to share our information on a platform that maybe we don't have a local meeting next to us, or maybe there's it doesn't work with our schedule. So I'm super excited that you guys are all here tonight. We are going to first do a little poll thingy because it takes people a moment to get in here. So I've got a poll for us tonight. We're at 7:03. We'll participate in a little poll and see if you guys freeze dry. If you don't freeze dry, what you do freeze dry. I do nothing. So I just will point that out. I got nothing yet. So I'm excited for tonight. So let's see what we get. I think I have made this to where you can pick multiple, but I may have made it where you can only pick one. If I made it where you can only pick one, my bad. I do tend to do that. So, oh, so far, nothing. That's why I'm here. High five, ladies. Boom. That's why I'm here too. That's why I'm here too. That, and this is what I do. Okay. 430 of you have participated in my happy poll. I can't decide if that's like hurting my feelings or if that's technology related. I'm gonna have to process that one. But I'll leave it up for a couple of more minutes. Not minutes, probably like 15 seconds. And then I'll take it down. And okay, Diane says eggs. Oh, that's a good one. Yeah. Eggs is definitely one of those things I forgot to put on there. So this poll is just on your screen. If you're on a laptop, it's on like a tiny little bar at the bottom on most phones if you're doing phones, but no worries, not a big deal. I tried to do veggie and fruit. Yep, I like that too. Okay, I'm not going to share the results with you guys. I'm just going to exit it because 4 of the 30 that participated said they did. They didn't do anything. They were doing it. That's why they were here. So yay. We have a lot to cover tonight. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of move us along because I think Esther is going to have a lot of questions. I don't know that for sure, but I have a feeling that she's going to have some questions. So we've done our poll. I'm really excited for Esther. So Esther, a while ago, I feel like it was not that long ago, but it probably was because I've been with NLHG for a while now. She was, back when we had regional directors, she was the regional director for my area, but she also had Dexter cows. And I went to the zoo one day and they were talking about how Dexters were the perfect homestead cow because they were great milk and great meat and they could be oxen and they were small. So they didn't, if you had good pasture, you didn't have to supplement a lot or you could have more than a couple. And so I called her and was like, is this all true? Is it? And she was like, Dexters are great. And so now I have too many Dexters. That's the problem. But I love them so much and I wouldn't have done it without Esther. So there's my like little Esther tidbit. She's been in and out of like my homestead journey and I just love it because I figured out herbs starting with her and I figured out cows starting with her. So I'm excited to figure out freeze drying and then convince my husband we need a freeze dryer. It's my next goal. I did the cows and I did the herb thing. So check. Let's move on to need number 3. We'll see how it goes. You guys can just, fingers crossed. So for our newcomers tonight, if you have never participated in one of our virtual gatherings, 1, welcome. And then 2, let me tell you, this is, if you've never been in a webinar, though, for all of us that have like worked from home, a lot of us have been in Zoom meetings and Zoom webinars. On a webinar, I cannot see you. I can see the other panelists that are on here. Thank you, panelists, for coming. And I can see that we have, oh, I'm not going to lie. Let's see how many guests we have so far. We have 40 people in here now. So I can see all of you, or I can't see all of you, but you can see me. And that's how it'll be for the rest of the night. So we can't see what you're doing. So if you're sitting in your pajamas eating a tub of ice cream, winner, chicken dinner. That's what I say. That's what I would be doing right now if I wasn't here, but I'm happy I'm here. And so is my pant line as we go into the little holiday season. So we can't see you. You can see us. That's just how it's going to go. We have a question and answer function, whether you're on your phone or you're on the computer, there is a Q&A function. If you're going to ask a question, please do, because that's, half the time what you're thinking, someone else is thinking and hasn't typed it. Use that Q&A function instead of the chat to ask questions. Esther's going to answer all of them at the end of this webinar. So make sure you use that. They'll get lost in the chat because you guys always have fun discussions during our gatherings. So check that Q&A function, type questions there. If you can't figure it out, you can send a private message to Julie, or I think mine's National Ladies Homestead Gathering right now, or you can send it to Christine. She's on the panelist. She'd be happy to save your question till the end. So just check that out. speaking of Christine, she runs my behind the scenes stuff. So she'll drop our links in the chat when I talk about the NLHG shop, or she'll drop the links in for our event in Idaho that's this weekend. So thank you, Christine, for all that you do. I am super, super thankful for you. Now, normally right now you would get to stop listening to me because I know you guys love my face and I'm learning to speak a lot slower thanks to your all suggestions. That ADHD brain goes 1,000 miles an hour. So I'm learning to enunciate and slow down. Thank you guys for that skill. I would normally bring Cindy on right now, and Cindy would talk about our purpose statement and our mission and all of that good stuff, but she's not with us tonight, so you get me. National Ladies Homestead Gatherings purpose, and the reason we do all of this is to empower women through homesteading. So it's pretty transparent that we strive to empower women via homesteading. And we do really, really believe that through our mission statement, which is share knowledge, build community, and grow friendships, we can do that. You can share your knowledge like we're doing tonight. You can build your community by typing in the chat, and you can nurture those friendships by writing those down and joining community.nlhg.org, which is our private online community, and do all of that. So we try to give you all the tools that you need to be a part of this awesome organization, to empower yourself and empower others through homesteading, because we all homestead differently, right? It's not confined to this vast expanses of land or maximizing how many animals you have. It's really about expanding your potential and maximizing your potential wherever you are, whether that's in the city or on land with 4 million acres. Doesn't matter. Either way, homesteading is what you want to do at home instead of going to the store. And in our private online community, we have that. We have a blend of, I'm going to screw this up, but we're going to go with blend of urban, suburban, rural, like city rural, I think was the other one that someone suggested. So we really strive to be an inclusive platform where everyone, regardless of where you are in your homestead journey, finds a voice and finds a place to fit, because we can't do this alone. I have learned that very quickly. We cannot do this alone. So come join us. I'm so happy you're here tonight. I think we're over 800 VIP members, and there's more than that in just the community. So come join us. I love that. Okay, there's my soapbox for tonight, or Cindy's soapbox via Julie's mouth. You're welcome. You're welcome. One of the things that I really enjoy doing, and June had to start as our membership director doing these this year because Miranda has always done them. And now June has stepped in as the fabulous membership director that she is, and she gets to share Atta Girls. So while I was telling you how we do the private online community, you can share what you've done this month. And then June comes on here and shares that. So I'm super honored to have June here tonight. She does such a great job sharing these. Oh, look, her pretty hair's all down and stuff. Look at you, pretty lady. I love it. I wish my hair was that pretty. You need to come to Oklahoma. Come on to Oklahoma.
Oh my goodness. Thank you, Julie. Welcome, ladies. And I am here in beautiful Idaho for our national gathering event this weekend. I'm super excited. I came from the flatlands of Ohio to the beautiful mountains here in Idaho, and I'm just so excited to get together with a bunch of women this weekend and learn and just enjoy time together. So without further ado, let's share the Atta Girls. This month, I post a post in our private online community each month asking for all of you to share moments, your Atta Girl moments, things you've accomplished, things you've tried, even if you didn't feel they were a success, you did try them this month. And it's always fun to see what all you've accomplished. Sometimes there are beautiful pictures, so make sure that you hop over to our online community and check these out and add your own as well if you haven't already. Kelly shared we got our hands on some fresh cream and made butter for the first time. And there's a beautiful picture of butter she made. Atta girl, Kelly. Caitlin got her goats moved into the barn, which was a very time-consuming project. She also got her American guinea hogs moved into pasture to graze for the next month. Atta girl, Caitlin. Diana said, my daughter and I made a red velvet cake from scratch. She made a batch of semi-homemade salsa and 2 batches of pasta sauce for the first time. Dehydrated tomato skins to turn into powder for later use. Saved the seeds too. Started her first ever fall garden. Pickled jalapeno slices and made homemade rose oil. And made her first ever smudge stick thanks to her local NLHG chapter meeting. Atta girl, Diana, you have been busy. Esther installed and calibrated her new 30-gallon bulk tank cooler for the milk from her micro dairy. It's working great so far. Atta girl, Esther. Marcella survived the summer. Joanna made homemade butter with raw A2 heavy cream and also made her first sourdough bread. They turned out so delicious. Atta girl, Joanna. Karen made grape juice for the first time. She got 12 quarts of juice and 9 jelly jars of jam, only spent $20 on grapes. Made and canned tomato soup for the first time too, and zucchini jam, garlic jelly, banana ketchup, tomato jam, and lots of other goodies for the first time. Next up is learning to make cheese. Atta girl, Karen. Amy made a Vortex burn barrel. Atta girl. Cameron said after Suzanne taught their cheese making workshop, she made ricotta cheese that was delicious in her husband's lasagna. Been sharing the way with the chickens and pigs. Atta girl, Cameron. Megan took up loom weaving. That's amazing. Hopefully you all will share pictures of some of the things you're doing. Atta girl, Megan. Carol taught a canning class, scheduled to teach more. Canned her neighbor's green beans as a surprise. Made yogurt and 4 pounds of butter. Freeze-dried culinary and medicinal herbs and 16 pounds of strawberries for her grandchildren. Planted garlic and onion in her raised beds and cleaned out her greenhouse. Atta girl, Carol. I'm just always so amazed at all of you, all that you ladies accomplish each month, and I'm so tickled to have you share that with us here. Thank you so much for participating in our online community. And if you haven't already, be sure to pop on there and share your own Atta girls. Thanks, Julie.
That was so much fun. I like hearing because they're different every month. Like so many people do such fun things. I think it's super, super fun. This is such like it's gonna drive me insane. My little sign is falling off because I messed with it earlier. So I am sorry. It will just it keeps falling. So if it sees like crashing, I promise it's not crashing down on me. It's just falling off my old stained glass. So I don't have much more to say tonight outside of like 2 more things. So I'm going to say my 2 more things. To this weekend, so you saw maybe on the waiting screen, this weekend in Wallace, Idaho, so the 6th and the 7th, there is a ton of speakers and hands-on demos, and it really is going to be a super insightful, I'm going to say treat, but I'm going to go with experience. A really insightful experience for everyone, homesteading beginners, homesteading advanced, homesteading, whatever your skill level is, it's going to be a ton of fun. So I say, forget whatever you're doing this weekend and fly to Idaho. Responsibilities be shoved in the toilet. Go to Idaho. Have a great time. It's going to be fun. I am really sad that I'm not there. I'm really sad. So you guys should go. That's all I'm saying. You should go. For those of you, that was a horrible transition, Julie. So go to Idaho. My next thing, there's the transition I want to say is our new website is live. So if you have been like, what is going on? Where's this? Where's that? Our website is live. It's awesome. Go check it out. The people on the executive staff work their rear ends off, and I am so thankful for them. So I have this tiny little part in this big picture that we are all participating in, but the new website, they did such a phenomenal job in such a short amount of time, because as we all know, life happens, things happen, website hosting things change, and you have to adapt, and they did a great job. So thanks to all of those involved. Okay, cool. There's all my businessy related things. So I'm getting ready to bring Esther on. I'm very excited for tonight's presentation. I know we have more participants in here now, so I will give a short little spiel again. We're going to use the Q&A function for questions because the chat, it just gets lost. If you can't figure out how to use the Q&A, shoot me a message. So my name on there, I don't know if you can see it. I could be pointing to nothing. Is National Ladies Homestead Gathering, or you can shoot your questions to Christine. They will be on here and we can send them to you. But use that Q&A function. 3 of you already have. Look at you, fancy pants. So use that instead of the chat, because the chat moves really quickly and things can get lost. So check that out. If you can't figure it out, Esther will, I'm sure, give a little introduction and give you a chance. At the end of it, Esther will answer everything. So I'm not ignoring your Q&As. I promise I'm not ignoring them. So if you are like, what, Julie, it's because we're going to answer everything at the end. So don't worry about that. I promise we will answer all of your questions. So without further ado, Esther, they want to see someone else's face besides mine. So Esther, you want to come on? I'm going to get your presentation. There she is. There's my pretty lady. Thanks for coming on tonight, Esther. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Can you guys hear me okay?
Looks like yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay, well, thanks for having me again. I'm excited to talk about freeze drying. Do you want to go to the first slide there, Julie? Sorry, guys, I'm not super technical, so I'm having Julie help me with my slides.
I think they should be able to see it. So I don't know if you can.
I can see it. I hope everybody else can see it.
Winning.
You can go to the next slide. All right. So a little bit about me. I'm sure I've met and talked with you guys at some point. I've been part of LHG for almost 10 years now, I think. And been a part of chapters and all those good things. I also taught or facilitated the food preservation book club the last 2 years. And so I'm a homeschooling mom. We have 3 children. We live in rural Iowa. I own and operate a micro dairy, and we provide A2 raw cow's milk for our community. I am also the first dairy certified by the Raw Milk Institute in our state, which was super exciting. And really my passions are homesteading, food preservation, food freedom, and herbalism. And so those things really get me excited. If you have questions about any of that, just shoot me a message sometime. I'm on the online community as well. But homesteading, especially Ladies Homestead Gathering, has helped me so much in my homesteading journey. And I've just, if you had asked me 15 years ago if I would be doing some of the things I'm doing now, I would probably look at you like you were crazy. But that's kind of what homesteading does to you once you kind of get started. All right, let's go to the next slide. Okay, so I know you're all here to learn about freeze drying. So we started our freeze drying journey 3.5 years ago. It was right before COVID hit, and it was something we had talked about for quite a while. And of course, one of the biggest concerns, like most people, was the cost. And looking at, how much does it cost? Is it really that beneficial to fork out, around $2,500 to buy this freeze dryer? Um, and is that really the best use for our money? Are we going to get out of it what we put into it? And so I'll talk a little bit about that as we continue in our conversation tonight. So for those of you who don't know what freeze drying is basically another form of preserving your food, just like canning and dehydrating are forms of preserving your food, and just like freezing is a form of preserving your food. So with a freeze dryer, it is a low temperature process, dehydration process that uses freezing at a very low temperature and pressure. And because of that, it removes all the moisture in the ice. And so I'll talk a little bit more about what the benefits are of that. It does use a very minimal amount of heat, but not to the point where it is a detriment to the nutritional value of the food. Um, so, because of the process that this method uses, the food um, really maintains the most nutritional properties from any other food preservation method. So it retains more than 90% of that, which compared to canning, compared to dehydrating, is pretty significant. The other nice thing is that with freeze drying, especially if you package it correctly after you freeze dried it, you can then preserve that for some foods up to 25 years. And so that is a really big deal when it comes to food preservation, because with canning, um, on the box, I believe the last time I checked, the ball box says that it's good for up to 18 months. Technically, it's good longer than that, but it's the nutritional value significantly reduces after that. It's very similar with dehydrated food as well. So that is why freeze drying is very beneficial if you're concerned with the nutritional value of the food that you're trying to preserve for your family. Here, if you've never seen what a freeze dryer looks like, the picture here shows, I believe that is the large. No, that's a medium-sized freeze dryer. You'll notice that it has a circular compartment, and inside of there, you'll see it will hold 4 trays. And those trays is what you would put your food on. And then the little part next to that, that is a vacuum pump. And so that vacuum pump is very important to the running and the cycling of the freeze dryer. And we'll talk a little bit more about that here moving forward. So we can go to the next slide, please, Julie. Okay, so just a couple of reasons why you might want to consider freeze drying your food. One of the reasons why freeze drying is a really good option is that because it removes that moisture content of the food. It turns the food into a very light product. It's even more light than a dehydrated food. If you compared those two, it's similar, but it almost turns into just a fluff. It's kind of interesting. And even though it turns it into such a lightweight little cloud of a product, when you rehydrate that food, it actually comes back to its original state, which is, to me, it still blows my mind how it does that, because you would think it would turn into complete mush in a bowl if you added water to it, but it actually reconstitutes to the state in which you freeze dried it. So, for example, if you took green beans and you freeze dried those raw, and then you would try to reconstitute it, it would be very similar to the texture of a raw green bean. If you cook the green bean first and then freeze dried it, and then reconstituted, it would have the similar quality of a cooked green bean, if that makes sense. And so it in most foods, it reduces the water content by about 75 to 95%. Um, I I don't know if you can see this, but this is a green bean. And if you notice, the size of it is still very similar to the original size. If you compared this to dehydrating a green bean, usually with dehydration, the food completely shrivels up. And I don't know if you can hear this. It's still very crunchy. It retains its color. It's just a really neat way of preserving food. Another thing that you can do with this is, and I'll talk a lot more about that here in a little bit. But you can flavor these in all kinds of different ways. So, for some of you moms that have younger children, if you're used to buying all those veggie straws at the store, this would be a fantastic replacement. So it's a really good way to preserve food long term. Like I'm talking years down the road, especially if you um, package it properly. And we'll talk more about how that can be done in the next slide. We talked about retaining the nutritional value. Another reason why you might want to freeze dry is preserving your harvest, all of that hard work you did outside in the garden. Yes, it's wonderful to can. Yes, it's wonderful to dehydrate. Yes, it's wonderful to freeze your food and have it right there in your freezer ready to go. But for some of us homesteaders, we start to run out of space to put things. And so if you can take all of those bags of veggies that you have in your freezer and all those bags of fruit that you have in your freezer, and you are able to freeze dry that, you now opened up space to put other things in. So, for example, in my house, I use a combination of freeze drying, canning, freezing, and dehydrating. There's certain things that I prefer frozen. For example, I prefer sweet corn frozen, but there's other things that I prefer freeze dried. And so you kind of start to make a little plan or organizational chart of what goes where. And so that's how we do things as far as deciding on what do you freeze dry, what don't you freeze dry. Another really good thing about freeze drying is that you can control your ingredients. Um, and honestly, guys, for a long time, freeze drying was kind of considered only for those crazy preppers out there. Um, but I've really found that freeze drying I use in a daily use in my pantry and in my kitchen because I can use it for all kinds of things. It makes it super easy to throw together a meal. If I'm just in a hurry and I don't have time for noodles to cook, I can grab a jar of my freeze dried rice and I can throw a handful in some soup and it's literally reconstituted within a minute. Um, and so those are a couple of reasons why you might consider freeze drying. Another reason is if you have ever considered purchasing freeze dried food and you fell over because of sticker shock, that is another reason where you can save some money. You can purchase different fruits and vegetables in season. You can make whole meals and freeze dry them. You can control the ingredients in that. And so, there again, you control what you're producing. And like our motto here with LHG goes that, do at home instead of buying at the store. Freeze drying is a wonderful way to accomplish that. All right, let's go to the next slide. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about, okay, if I want to get a freeze dryer, what all does it come with and what does it look like? And so the freeze dryers, there's really currently one company who makes them for the home use. I have heard talk of another company that's making them. I just don't know enough about them to tell you, pros and cons of each. The company Harvest Right is a company that has been making these for a very long time. And so you're going to hear most people have one of those. So the freeze dryer comes in a small, medium, and large size. They do come in different colors, which is, if you're kind of into that, that's kind of neat. It will come with trays, and I've got a tray right here. These are stainless steel trays. We have a medium size. So if you're looking at, size wise, this is what the medium size tray looks like. And so a medium freeze dryer will come with 4 trays. In the picture here on the slide, that's a small freeze dryer. You'll see it only has 3 trays. And I believe with a large freeze dryer, it comes with 5 trays. One thing that I would recommend if you do purchase a freeze dryer is to buy an extra set of trays. Because while one set of trays is in your freeze dryer, you can get another set of trays ready with food. And so as soon as your freeze dryer is done, you can swap it out for the next batch, which makes things just go so much faster. It comes with a vacuum pump, as I mentioned earlier, and currently they come with a regular vacuum pump or an oilless vacuum pump. So the regular one requires that you put vacuum oil in it. The other one does not. The oilless one is more expensive. I think it's $400 or $500 right now, maybe a little bit more. The regular one that needs oil comes with the freeze dryer, so that's not an extra charge. We have the regular one. We just didn't see the point in buying, spending that much more money for an oilless pump. But you just need to kind of look at the pros and cons and see how that fits for your home. The vacuum oil that goes in these pumps is pretty inexpensive, and you can filter the oil that you've used and reuse it. So that's something to consider. Let's see. It comes with a Mylar bag sealer. It's kind of like a fancy hair straightener. But it's super awesome because it's long enough to fit your Mylar bags in if you need that. Let's see. The best way to store your items is to use Mylar bags, and I think everyone knows what Mylar bags are. If you do not, they're kind of like these metallic. They're not really metallic. They're not really plastic, but they're these bags that keep any light and air out of it if you package them properly with oxygen absorbers and if you seal them properly with the Mylar bag sealer. And so that is a great way to store your food, because if you don't store your freeze-dried food properly, it will absorb any moisture that's in the air. So that would be that would significantly reduce the shelf stable properties of your food at that point. So if your plan is to get a freeze dryer to preserve food for the long term, you will want to make sure that you buy Mylar bags and store your food in that. Some people I know do like to store their food in canning jars, and they get the little attachment you can buy to suck all the air out, and that's fine. So you just kind of have to weigh out the cost of jars compared to Mylar bags. One other thing that might be a con to using glass jars is that it will have more sunlight or light that could hit it. So let's see. Oh, so I'm just making sure that I'm covering everything on this. If you're going to get Mylar bags, you can purchase them from Harvest Right. And just so you guys know, I don't get paid by Harvest Right or anything to have this conversation with you. I'm not affiliated with them at all. I'm just sharing with you what my personal experience is. But Harvest Right does sell Mylar bags. They are really nice, but they are a little bit more pricey. They do have their logo on it and everything. I prefer to buy mine from a different company simply because I freeze dry a lot and I go through a lot of bags, and it helps to save a little money. So I prefer to buy them from, let's see, Pack Fresh USA. I don't know, can you guys see that? This company is a US company, and I've really enjoyed their bags. They have all kinds of different sizes. And the one thing I like the most about them, and some other companies might do this, but they send their oxygen absorber packets in packs of 10. Now, why is this important? It's important because once I open this bag, if I just get one of these out and I don't use the rest of them, it is incredibly hard to seal this back off. And so then you either have to use the entire bag right away, or you risk wasting all of them. And so for me, when I freeze dry enough batches to fill 10 of these bags. And once I can fit 10 bags, I go ahead and fill them. And then I quickly put these in there and seal them. I have one of my kids help me so that we can seal them very quickly to ensure that most of the oxygen is absorbed by these packets. Now, when I'm talking about the size with these oxygen absorbers, I'm talking about quart size bags. If you needed to have in larger bags, they do sell these with larger bags, and I believe they package them individually. So that is really nice when it comes to these, because I've seen companies sell these in packs of 100. You are not going to get them all used before they all go bad. And so that would be quite a waste of money. So just something to consider if you're looking into Mylar bags and oxygen absorbers. So one other item that is a optional supply is that you can purchase silicone molds and silicone tray dividers. So if you are trying to freeze dry meals, for example, let's say you've made a lasagna or another kind of casserole, and you are freeze drying with the intent of making meals that your family is going to take for a camping trip, or you're sending it off with your son or daughter because they're going to college. They do make these fancy dividers where you can divide the tray and the food into portions, which is really nice. Another thing that's nice is if you're trying to freeze dry liquids. So for example, we like freeze drying, and I don't know if I grabbed these. Hold on. Oh yeah. We like freeze drying. We call them yogurt bites. And so what I do is I make yogurt, and I flavor it to whatever my kids like. This one is a vanilla maple syrup, and I make these little bites and I put granola on it. And then I put it in like those mini brownie silicone molds. And so you freeze it before you put it in the freeze dryer. Then you pop them out of the molds. You stick them on your tray, and you can fit, oh gosh, let's see. I can probably fit about 80 or so of these little bites in one batch. And these last, well, they don't last too long because my kids really like them, but you'll see that it makes a very quick and healthy snack for them. You can do that with smoothies. You can freeze different flavors of smoothies and then make them into little bites like this. It's great for on the road, or I send them with my husband to his office, and it makes me feel better knowing that that the food that my kids and my husband are eating are, you know, high nutritional value. Let's go to the next slide. Okay. So a lot of people ask me, well, what can you freeze dry? And, you know, are there things you can't freeze dry? So here's a whole list of things you can freeze dry. There's only very few things that you cannot freeze dry. For example, you cannot freeze dry butter. I know they sell powdered butter, and I would love to know how they do it, because it's very expensive to buy a can of powdered butter. But anything that has a high fat content, like butter or bacon or ground beef, that's like an 80-20 blend, that's going to have a lot of grease on it. And unfortunately, that grease, you can freeze dry it, but it's not going to last very long. It will go rancid very quickly. So other than that, you can freeze dry just about anything. You can freeze dry fruits, vegetables. I freeze dried lemons and limes with the rind on, and they're a wonderful either addition to if I'm making lemonade, or if you're making some gifts like potpourri gifts or something, or you just want to put kind of a neat little dried lemon or lime on a gift, the options are endless. Vegetables, you can freeze dry basically any vegetable. Some of them are going to turn out better than others. For example, things like spinach, because they're so thin, might powder more quickly. But that's kind of a nice thing, because then you can turn it into a powder that you can add to smoothies. And because you turn it into a powder, that big bag of spinach now fits into a small container, which means you freed up space to put other things on your shelf. Eggs, you can freeze dry eggs cooked and raw. I know initially when I heard that, I thought that was crazy. But I have actually freeze dried, I would say, over 100 dozen eggs, simply because it is a wonderful protein to have on hand. It is used in, I can reconstitute it and make scrambled eggs with it. I can bake with it. I can put it in just about anything. So it's, for us, when we have a lot of eggs over the warmer months, and then our chickens don't lay as much during the colder months, it's a fantastic way for us to have eggs on hand still without having to go out and buying them. Meats, you can freeze dry just about any meat. Again, you'll have to look at, you know, the grease factor and the fat factor on some of these, but you can freeze dry cooked and raw meats. I'll be honest with you, I have not been brave enough to freeze dry raw meat, but I have freeze dried chicken. I'll show you kind of what that looks like. This is a piece of grilled chicken I made. And what's nice, I know it sounds crazy, but it's nice. Again, you are running around, you forgot to grab something out of the freezer for dinner. It's 30 minutes before everybody needs to eat, before they have to go off and do something else. These are just a fantastic way to throw in a pot, and you'll have dinner ready in 10-15 minutes. Literally, it's just the time it takes to reconstitute and the time it takes to heat up some water. That's it. You can freeze dry, like I said, just about any dairy product except for butter. So I have freeze dried milk. I have freeze dried sour cream, cream cheese, yogurt. Some people like to freeze dry their yogurt and keep that so they have a yogurt culture. So remember how we talked about how freeze drying retains a lot of the nutritional value. When it comes to yogurt and sourdough bread starters, you can freeze dry those and save those, and they will still come back to life when it's reconstituted, which is super awesome. You can freeze dry things as single ingredients or whole meals. I see the benefit in both. You can freeze dry candies, cakes, ice cream, desserts. It's pretty neat. So let's go to the next one. Okay, so a little bit about packaging. I'm just checking my time to make sure we have enough time for questions. Um, Freeze-dried food, like I said, you can package in Mylar bags, you can package in glass jars. You just want to make sure that if it's something you plan to keep on the shelf for a long, long time, or it's something you're trying to put away for a rainy day, you want to make sure that it has an oxygen absorber, and you keep it out of any sunlight or daylight. Let's see. Of course, vacuum sealing ensures the best longevity and stability. The thickness of the Mylar bag is important too. Some of these foods can have kind of sharp, pointy edges. And so you don't want your Mylar bag to be so thin that it punctures the bag. These little window Mylar bags on the bottom here are super cute, especially if you're planning to sell or you're planning to give it away as gifts, but they're probably not the best for long-term storage. Let's go to the next slide, Julie. Okay, so when it comes to evaluating the cost benefit, I think the biggest thing that you need to consider is, what is my objective with getting this? If your objective is to use it for its intended purpose, which is to preserve food, preserve your bounty, preserve, the things you're growing on your homestead, and you plan to use it on a very regular basis, I think the cost or the benefits far outweigh the cost. I know that was a case for us. I can't even tell. I wish I had kept a running record of how much money we would have saved in the long run. You can also use a freeze dryer for business purposes. You see a lot of people selling freeze dried foods these days. So do check with your state cottage food laws. But honestly, this is still such a new thing. It hasn't really hit the law books yet, which is maybe a good thing. So yeah, consider how often you'll use it. But again, I think it really outweighs or the benefits outweigh the cost. And then also consider, if you were planning to buy freeze-dried food, how much it would cost you. If you've looked at freeze-dried food costs these days, it is absolutely through the roof. And so again, we're all about doing it at home instead of buying at the store, right? Also, if you're going to spend all that time in your garden and raising chickens and raising cattle, and you have all that meat coming in and all that produce coming in, why not preserve it yourself with a freeze dryer? Next slide. Okay, so just a couple of tips. The best thing that I found, and in looking at other different forums, I've seen the most problems people have is because they didn't freeze their food on the tray first. So what I mean by that is, when you're planning, you can freeze dry food without freezing it first, but it's a little bit more volatile. And so if you freeze it on your tray first, so get all of your, let's say, apples on your tray, throw it in the freezer, and then start your batch the next day, give it 24 hours to freeze, you have a much better and more regulated end product. It also saves time and money in regards to electricity. If it's already frozen, then that's less time your freeze dryer has to run. Let's see. Another tip I would recommend is, sometimes you can be unsure as to whether or not your food is completely freeze dried. So before you go and place that tray that you just got out of the freeze dryer and throw that food into a Mylar bag and seal it, the best thing to do is put that food into a glass jar, like a mason jar. It could be half gallon, gallon jar. Close the top and let it sit for 24 hours. If you see any condensation inside the jar, that means the food wasn't completely processed. You can reprocess it. Imagine if you had not done that step. It's in your Mylar bag. You can't look in your Mylar bag, and 3 years from now, you open that bag and all the food is rotten. So this is one extra step that really helps to ensure that your food is completely dry. I already talked about some of the silicone mats and portion dividers. They're super helpful. Don't freeze dry any strong flavors, like opposing flavors, together. For example, you don't want to freeze dry a tray of celery with a tray of strawberries, because then your strawberries will taste like celery. So that's not a good idea. Let's go to the next one. Okay, so here's a couple resources. Definitely check out the Harvest Right website. They've got some great information and some really great videos. Two groups that I really enjoy on Facebook or YouTube is one called Retired at 40, and the other one is Betty's Harvest Right Freeze Drying Group. Those have been pretty solid as far as information. There's some great recipes out there. And then there's a lot of books and information out there. This is one book that I've enjoyed. Let's see. It's called Meals in a Jar by Stephanie Peterson. So this book is was put out by the Honeyville Farms, Honeyville Kitchen. If you guys have ever bought freeze-dried items or some bulk wheat, things like that, Honeyville puts those out on their website. This book basically gives you ingredients on how you can make freeze-dried meals in a jar. So it's pretty neat, because now, of course, they list a lot of their products that they sell freeze-dried already. So imagine if you could do this with your own freeze-dried items and how much money you would save. All right. So it's got things like taco soup, chicken noodle soup, casserole, stews. It has different desserts, hazelnut double chocolate truffle cups. I mean, I would eat that. But it's nice if you can do your own. So these generally will go into quart-sized mason jars. And if you look on here, it will tell you the estimated shelf life. So some will be 5 years, some are 5 to 10 years. So that's a long time to put food up for. I'll leave it at that. I know we're running kind of short on time.
You have 2 hours, Esther. I didn't tell you that. Without the breakout rooms, you have 2 hours. So you have plenty of time. You're just fine.
So we have some time. Yeah. So there's a lot of other great books. I just think that, if you are trying to put food away, it's really a great option. For me, I'll tell you kind of my strategy of how we tackled this. We got our freeze dryer, and this is a good one for you, Julie, on how you can convince your husband. We got our freeze dryer as a anniversary gift to each other. So it was something that we had been tossing around if we should buy it. And we said, well, why don't we just say that's our anniversary gift to each other, which of course is a really nice anniversary gift. But we've really enjoyed it, and we've gotten so much use out of it. But my strategy was, I want to freeze dry single ingredients. That doesn't mean you can't freeze dry entire meals. But for me, I wanted to have the single ingredients to the foods that we ate the most that I might not want to can, or I might not want to freeze. So for example, I started freeze drying a lot of our fruits that we would either purchase in bulk or we would grow on our farm. A lot of vegetables we did that way. Knowing that having the individual ingredients, I could then make a myriad of meals, if that makes sense, because then it was more versatile. We freeze dried herbs, we freeze dried onions and celery. And for me, it was, I want to freeze dry things that I can't easily grow myself. So I have tried to grow celery and I'm just no good at it. I don't know why. I don't know if this is just the area, but so that's something that I use in a lot of my cooking. And so I wanted to ensure that I freeze dried enough celery or enough onions or whatever, just things that I knew that I used on a daily or weekly basis. And so I would start to go down my list of those items. I would make a whole list of it. And then as I would freeze dry, I would just make tally marks of how many bags I had of that particular item. And I would always keep some on the shelf so that, you know, if I needed it for, you know, for that month or whatever, I could just grab it. Now this past year, I've started doing more meals. So for example, if I made a huge crock pot full of chili, but everybody got sick and tired of eating chili after 2 days, I would take the remaining of that and just pop it on a tray, freeze dry it. And instead of it going bad in the fridge because nobody wants to eat it or taking up space in my freezer, it is now freeze dried and we can use it for whenever somebody goes hunting or camping or whatever it might be. You know, rainy day, I don't want to cook, or let's say you're not feeling good. I mean, what if you're sick or something happens and all you or your kids or your husband would have to do is just heat up some water, reconstitute that chili, and you've got a meal in less than 5 minutes. Let's see. I haven't done too much candy. There's a couple of things we've done that I just, you know, just for fun with the kids. We have a favorite type of marshmallow that we freeze dried, and so that makes it fun and hot chocolate. Trying to think what else.
You've got some
There's
questions
just so many
too.
options.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can definitely start with questions if you'd like.
Perfect. If freeze drying beef, heart, kidney, liver, etc. for dog treats, should it be cooked first? If so, how is it best to cook? My dogs are not a fan, are not on a raw diet.
You can do whatever your preference is in regards to that. You can do cooked or raw. I don't think that if you're freeze drying it with the intent of giving it to them as a treat, I don't think, you know, the little bit of uncooked freeze dried meat would upset their stomachs, but that really depends on your animal, of course, you know, if they have sensitivity issues or whatever. But you can absolutely freeze dry that raw or cooked. Of course,
Perfect.
once it's cooked, some of the nutritional, you know, properties and values goes down, but you can certainly do either or.
That's perfect. Okay. I know you discussed the Mylar bags. Do you mind sharing the brand name again? And then Tony said, I'm looking for the best brand of Mylar bags in O2, etc. I've used a 7.5 milliliter and they seem really good. And then my next order said they were 7, but it doesn't seem airtight. Also, have you been successful vacuum sealing mason jars? And I know you discussed that, so Tony may have typed it before we got there.
Yeah, so it's Pack Fresh USA. Oh, can you see that? I'm trying to
put it up just a little bit higher. There we go. Awesome.
And when I purchased these from them, okay, so these are gallon bags, okay, guys. So quart bag, these are gallon bags folded over. So quart bags would be about the size of this. But they send in here, they send the packets of 10 oxygen absorbers, which is really, this is a pack of 50 bags. And so it comes with 5 packs of 10 of these oxygen absorbers. Yes, you do want to look at the thickness of the bag, because that does have, you know, that's going to affect your bag. These have been pretty good. Sometimes if it doesn't seal right, I've noticed that if it's a food that has a little bit of powder or dust when you pour it into the bag, you'll want to kind of wipe the inside of the part of the bag that you're going to be sealing. Don't use a wet rag. but just with your hand, just wipe around it or get a paper towel and just wipe any dust that could be in there, because when you seal it, if any of those dust particles are in there, that sometimes keeps it from sealing properly. I've also started sealing mine in two spots, like right above each other, so that there are two seals just to be sure that it's sealed. Does that answer your question?
I think that was good. Let me see. She typed in the chat, but okay, perfect.
Okay.
I think so. Tony, if she didn't, just shoot me another message. That's my fault.
And then you had a question about the sealing
Oh
the
yes,
jars,
the vacuum
right?
sealed jars. That was it. I knew there was something.
So I use something that that goes with my food saver. And it's just an attachment. So what you would do is you would put your food in the jar. You would put your oxygen absorbing packet in there and then close it right away, and then put this attachment over top and seal it. And then whatever air that's left in there, the oxygen absorber will take care of. If that makes sense.
It makes sense to me. Perfect. Okay. Let's see. How do you do your tomatoes? She says, I'm lazy and I don't want to peel and remove the seeds, but they retain so much moisture. It takes forever to ensure that there isn't any.
So how do you freeze dry tomatoes? I would say it depends on what your end use is going to be for it. If your plan is just to have it, to powder, have it as powder to add to whatever, then essentially you could whiz your tomatoes, skin and all, in a blender, and then just pour that puree on your trays. If you're particular about seeds and skin, you'll still have to get those off. But otherwise, that's the way I would do that. One more thing, guys. These oxygen absorber packets, there is a different size for the size bag you're using. So with my quart size, I can't remember what this oxygen absorber level is, but quart size ones are a little bit smaller than your gallon size or your 5-gallon size. So, but with this company, what I like is you have the option to select the bags with oxygen absorbers, and they will sell you or send the right size oxygen absorber for that bag with it. So you don't have to sit there and try to figure that out.
That's super helpful. Can Mylar bags be reused?
I have reused them, yes. Again, you'll want to wipe, the inside rim of it. I will say I won't reuse a bag that had like meats or things like that with something like a vegetable, just because I get a little bit paranoid. But I do, for example, if I have a bag that had grains in it, I will put, new grains in that and then reseal it. So kind of like foods together can be used in or reused in the bag. Did you have any other questions?
Hi, it's Christine. I'm going to pop in. She was texting me that she was having high winds, so she may be
Oh,
gone.
totally fine. She said
Let's
she lost
see.
power.
Yep. Do you freeze herbs before freeze drying or just lay them on the sheets fresh?
I do freeze them simply because I've had better end results with frozen items, with freezing my items first. So yes, I do freeze them first.
Can you freeze dry sauces or condiments in the portions like barbecue sauce, soy, ketchup, mustard, etc.?
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah, which makes it really nice, especially if you're doing it in portions. You can put it in, in those little mini muffin silicone trays or silicone molds, and just freeze that, and then just pop it out onto your freeze dry tray and freeze dry it that way. If you were wanting to save these into smaller Mylar bags instead of putting like a quart size bag together, you can absolutely take the Mylar bag and cut it to the size that you want. I have done that with herbs because sometimes, I'm not going to use a quart size bag of basil, within 6 months to a year. And so I will cut that bag into 4s and then reseal the edges and then just put it in there. And then that way you're not opening a huge bag and only using a little bit.
Can you freeze dry honey?
That's a good question. I've heard that before. I have personally not tried that. That is an item that for me, because honey is an item that is shelf stable and lasts forever, as so long as it's put into, clean and dry containers. I just didn't feel the need to freeze dry our honey. I'm a beekeeper, so we do get quite a bit of honey. So that's, to me, I just kind of evaluated, will this item do well on the shelf in its current state, or do I need to freeze dry it or can it or something like that?
And then also maple syrup was mentioned also.
You might be able to do that because that has quite a bit of water content. I have not personally tried that, but I would love to hear if someone has. That would be great to find out.
Have you noticed an increase in your electric bill?
We have not noticed a significant increase, no more than if I was using my dehydrator. I think it takes a little bit less or quite a bit less electricity. And I also had to look at, how much does it cost? So we're on natural gas or propane. So how much does that cost compared to running electricity in my freeze dryer? And so for us, it just, we didn't notice a significant difference in our electric bill.
That's nice to know. What is the weirdest thing you've ever freeze dried?
Ooh, well, you guys don't think it's weird because you're homesteaders. But for some people that I talk to, they're like, you did what? Everybody always says that liver is really good for you, but I don't like the flavor of it at all. But I know it has a lot of really good health benefits. But I'm also a little bit weirded out about eating it raw. And so I very lightly baked it at a very low temperature for a very short amount of time. And then I freeze dried that, and then I powdered it and I put it into capsules so I can take it that way. The other weird thing, I guess, is chicken and eggs. I freeze dried some of our raw milk from our cows. I've heard people say that freeze dried milk reconstituted tastes better than frozen milk that's defrosted. So that's something, just to try.
Cool. For avocados, should they be hard or softer before you freeze dry them?
I don't think that matters. I think you just need to make sure that they're ripe. And once they're ripe, and they're at the you've made it into a consistency that you like. Like, for example, if you want to use it for guacamole or something, I think with all of these fruits and vegetables, what I love about freeze drying is you use it at the peak of freshness, and you can really taste that when you reconstitute it or you eat it. So I would just use it when it's fresh, when it's at the consistency that you like.
I'm texting her. I think she's back. Are you back, Julie?
I'm back, but I can't see any of the Q&As. All I have was Nicole saying cheese that just popped up now. Have you gone through all of them?
No, I'll keep going. We have a lot of questions.
Thanks, Christine.
Okay. Do all Mylar bags have to be sucked in like a Food Saver bag? I think some have zip tops. What is your recommendation on that?
Yeah, some of them have zip tops, but they still leave an edge to where you can seal it. So if it's a product that, for example, an herb or something that you don't use the entire bag in one sitting, it is kind of nice to have that resealable bag. For me, I did not spend the extra money to get that because I figured once the bag is open, I would just pour it into a glass mason jar and then use it out of there. But it is
So,
nice if you want to use that as, for example, if you want to sell freeze-dried goodies, some people like it that you can reseal the bag.
fair point. How exactly do you reconstitute? So how much water, and do you always use hot water?
So I think with that, it really depends again on the product. So if it's strawberries, you probably don't want them to be hot unless you're making jam with it. So then you can reconstitute it with just, tap water, or tap temperature water. If it's something like a meal that needs to be warm, like a soup or a chili or something like that, then you would want to use boiling water. So it just depends on the product and what you want the final state of the food to be. And different foods take different amounts of water. For example, I believe if I have this right, I haven't looked at this in a while. I apologize, but for raw eggs, so I freeze dry raw eggs and I powder them, and I believe it's one tablespoon of powdered raw eggs to 2 tablespoons water makes the equivalency of 1 egg. And so that makes it super nice. If you're baking something, you can just, take the powdered, you want to reconstitute it on its own first before you put it in your recipe. But that's one that is pretty specific for eggs. But most of the other things, I think it just depends on what your end use is and what consistency you like. For example, if you freeze dried, let's see, mashed potatoes, you might like your potatoes a little bit more more wet than someone else. So it's just personal preference.
How about cheese?
You can do cheese, and I know a lot of people do cheese. They freeze dry cheese. Absolutely, it's a great way to make it shelf stable because unless, I mean, if you're making your own cheese and you have a cheese cave, that's one way to preserve your cheese. But if you don't have that option, then freeze drying is certainly a good possibility.
Okay, I'm kind of skipping around a little here. My partner and I are intrigued by the possibility of being able to take meals with us when we travel and still eat good food away from home. Any experience or do's and don'ts for taking foods on vacations or trips, especially on airplanes?
Um, I don't have any tips on that. I don't think. Well, one, I would just label it, just so you know. You never know if somebody opens your bag and they see 20 little packets of, unlabeled bags. That might raise some questions, but um, I think it's a really good way to bring your own food with you. It's a fantastic way to pack it. I mean, the weight is decreased significantly with freeze drying, but you still retain the nutritional value. So it's a fantastic way to bring food with you. We have good friends who freeze dry. They have a lot of different food allergies in their families, and so when they go on vacation, she brings just about all of their meals freeze dried. And so it just makes it super easy. And again, the weight is not there, which makes it really convenient.
Very cool. How long does it take to do the eggs?
That's a good question. I think, trying to remember, because it's been a couple of months since I've done eggs. I want to say anywhere from 24 to 30 hours. Now, I will tell you, I like to be a little bit of a freeze dryer rebel, and I try to fill it up as much as I can. I know some people fill their trays much less than I do, but for me, I look at it as, if I'm going to run a batch, I want to get as much out of it as possible. If I'm going to use the electricity, if I'm going to take my time to do this, then let's get as much on that tray as possible. So on my medium size freeze dryer trays, I can fit, depending on if I have any smaller or larger eggs, but I can usually fit 18 to 20 eggs, raw eggs per tray. So if I have 4 trays in that freeze dryer with 20 eggs each, that's 80 eggs that I can run in one batch, which makes it super awesome.
That's a lot. If you if you freeze dry raw meat, can you eat it right after you reconstitute it?
You would still want to cook it, unless you're just kind of a weirdo. I would cook it, simply because there are so many more chances of any kind of bacteria being introduced, whether it's when it was purchased, or when you put it on the trays, or when you pulled it out of the trays and put it in your jars. There's just so many chances of any kind of bacteria getting in there. I would just say, if it's the type of meat that you would cook regularly, then I would cook it. Unless, again, you're giving it as treats to your animals.
Would you suggest a pumpless model for someone with limited space?
Not necessarily, because they're going to take up about the same amount of space. And we didn't talk about that as far as where to store your freeze dryer. So maybe I'll address that a little bit. So the pump is almost, well, I shouldn't say that. For my medium-sized freeze dryer, my pump is almost as long as the depth of that freeze dryer. Of course, it's not as big as the freeze dryer, but the length of it is. So I have it sitting on a desk, one next to the other. The freeze dryer is noisy. So it's more noisy than a dehydrator usually. It does give off some heat because it's a machine that's operating. And so I know some people put them in their basements. We store ours in our garage because it's just, in our garage or our side room by our garage. When it's super hot, I put it in a different spot, just because the outside heat when it's hot does affect the machine. It makes it run longer. But I would definitely consider, putting the freeze dryer in a basement, in a room somewhere, or somewhere where the noise won't bother you. And the machine is kind of heavy. So it's not, you can't easily move it around like a dehydrator. So like for me, I always have my husband move it if we move it, just because it's entirely too heavy to move by myself.
Do you recommend any type of a guide on how to reconstitute food? And also, how often do you change your oil?
I don't have a specific guide. I just really followed a lot of those different groups, freeze drying groups. I think the reason why there's not really like a set guide is because you might cut your peppers a different size than I would. So it's really going to be kind of individual preference in regards to that. And I think once you reconstitute things a couple of times, you're going to get the idea of what works best. Of course, if you're going to reconstitute it with hot water, I would put something on top of it so the heat stays in. And so things don't dry out. What was the other question?
Let me find it again for you. I've lost it now. While I'm looking for it, can you explain the process for reconstituting cheese a little bit more?
Yeah, I know it sounds weird, adding water to dry cheese, but that's how a lot of people do it. Personally, I like to, if it's cheese like that, I would usually put it in a recipe or on top of a recipe. And so I kind of let it absorb whatever is in that recipe. Now, that is if you're using really finely grated cheese, if that makes sense. If you're using the thick grated cheese, you might want to reconstitute it beforehand. But if you used a really fine grated cheese, that's an option.
The question I forgot was how often do you change the oil?
Yeah, that's a good question. I change mine every 2 to 4 uses as I think of it. So if I think it's been 4 times, I change it out. Sometimes I do it more often. You can filter the oil. So when the oil comes out of your pump, so I'll tell you what I do. And there's a million different ways that other people do it. I have an empty juice bottle that I've designated for freeze dryer oil. I let all the oil drain into that, and then I let it sit. So if I want to run my freeze dryer again, I'll just pour some new oil into the vacuum pump. I let the oil that I just took out of the freeze dryer pump sit. And as it sits for a day, for example, any impurities, any water will sink to the bottom because oil rises. And so then the oil that's on top can be reused. So if you want to cycle that through, the next time 2 to 4 batches later, you can do that. Just make sure that you don't let any of the water or impurities go in there. One way that you can go about this, and this might be hard to explain on here because I don't have it here like to show you visually. But one recommendation is to use a old Brita water filter. And where the Brita filter goes, you would take about half of a toilet paper roll that you've rolled up really fine, and you would really shove that in there. And then you would filter the oil through that. That toilet paper will absorb the impurities in the water. And then you can just toss that, and then you can reuse the oil. The freeze dryer does come with a kind of filter option, but it's not. We noticed that we couldn't use it very long. We filtered it a couple of times and then it was no good. That might have changed since we purchased ours almost 4 years ago. But there's a couple different ways that you can, reuse and filter your oil.
Is it too heavy for the kitchen table if that's the only space you have?
No, if you have sturdy table. But something to consider, it is pretty loud. So if you're going to have it in your kitchen, just be prepared for that noise.
And then 2 final questions we have here, both are regarding the Mylar bags. So the question is between the vacuum sealing and then also you could seal the Mylar bags with heat. So what do you prefer?
Say that question again.
So one is saying that you can seal the Mylar bags with heat, but not a vacuum sealer. And the other one is saying, do you need the vacuum sealer in order to do it?
Okay, so the vacuum sealer that comes with it is like that is what seals the bag shut. That sealer won't actually remove the oxygen. And so you need that little oxygen absorber in the bag to, once it's sealed, to remove the oxygen, if that makes sense. Tell me the second part of the question again. Sorry.
So I've seen videos on this too where you seal a Mylar bag with heat. Like I've seen the videos where you use like a flat iron to seal the Mylar bags.
Yeah. Yeah. So you can totally use a flat iron to seal the bags. The flat iron isn't as long usually as the sealer that comes with the freeze dryer kit. And I guess with a flat iron, you can change the temperature. You can change the temperature on a bag sealer also.
Okay, I don't see any more questions. Julie, are you still muted forever?
Nope, I'm ready.
She's back.
Yes,
Yay.
I'm ready. So, I typed it in the chat, but Deb wanted everyone to know that a heat sealer and a vacuum sealer are two different things. So,
That's right.
yes, they are.
Yeah, so one just seals it and the other one takes oxygen out. So you're talking about two completely different things that have a completely separate job.
That's perfect. I am probably a wet mess. I disappeared for a moment because we had a big storm that came through and I had to go run outside and put chickens away. And then we lost power. And so I taken a shower outside. But Esther, thank you so much for coming on. You had such great information and you answered everyone's questions. So thank you so much for that. I really appreciate it. Esther is in our private online community, and like she said, you can email her. I have her contact information for email, so if you need it, you guys can shoot me a message at media@nlhg.org. Esther, thanks. I have a small person behind me. So thank you so much for coming on. You were awesome.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Yes. Our next month, we are going to be, hopefully, someone's going to be teaching us how to make a dryer ball, a wool dryer ball. We'll see how it goes. My person emailed me today and said she was not going to be able to do it. So if you know someone that wants to help me teach people how to make a wool dryer ball, let me know. I'm going to post in a couple of places and hopefully we'll find someone. But I so appreciate everyone jumping on. Esther did a fantastic job. Christine, thank you for saving my butt. June, you have a great time up in Idaho. I'm sure you're with Miranda right now. You guys are awesome. If anyone needs anything, I am at media@nlhg.org. I thought this presentation was great too, Diane. Thank you guys so much.